to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. The worlds of gaming and esports are evolving every day faster than ever before. With YouGov's living data, you can probe into the real thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers worldwide. If you're a team, a brand, an agency, or a rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. They're partners with the biggest names in esports and the biggest brands all around the world, driving compelling results every single day. Check out yougov.com/BOE and schedule a call with YouGov today. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Jake Phillips from Stream Hatchet, and Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week. We look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. And best of all, on this show, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to challenge us, get in our faces. We know so many of you lurk or watch this show not live, like recorded after the fact, and that's okay. But if you're here, we encourage you to participate. It makes it so much more fun, and we appreciate it. So feel free. It's a safe space. How is everyone doing this week?
Guys, I am so busy. It's crazy. Like, things are just exploding. I get surgery next Tuesday, so you guys won't see me next week. We'll see about. I was
going to say things are exploding, not your knee. Hopefully.
No, that's been exploded, Paul. That happened a month ago. No, but I thought it was going to slow me down, and it just hasn't. So I'm pretty upset that I'm going to have to stop when I get this dang surgery. But I'll be back better than ever after that.
Are you planning on playing games, Lindsay, while you're... I was curious. I meant to ask you last week. But, is this part of the recovery?
Yeah, maybe I downloaded a couple new things on the Switch for me to play while I lay on the couch and watch the third season of Love is Blind. Big plans.
Okay. Plug for Love is Blind for some reason.
Yeah, season 3 out now. It's important. I also have to finish Bachelor in Paradise. Big time for reality television.
No Dubai Bling. No In Honor.
Oh, it's on my to watch list as well. Don't worry. As if.
Jake, welcome. How are things with you?
Going well. We've I know today, and not to tease too much, but hopefully we'll be chatting through a few insights. But we had our Q3 live streaming report come out, so a lot of really interesting stuff. Excited to get that report out in our kind of quarterly series that we have, kind of updating the market. Last week, still recovering a little bit, was in Las Vegas for the Esports Business Summit, which is always a great time. But yeah, just aside from recovering from that and just trying to dig myself out of that hole and get everybody excited about this new report. That's about it.
I'm sorry to miss you there, Jake. Esports Business Summit, good partners of ours. And if you'd seen in our newsletter, we were promoting that for our regular listeners. If you guys are not subscribed to the newsletter, I'm going to drop it for you in the chat here. And actually, to Jake's point, this Stream Hatchet, these insights were covered in our newsletter yesterday, being November 8th. As well as today, November 9th. So if you're a regular subscriber or a new subscriber, definitely go check that out. Or obviously you can go to streamhatchet.com and get it direct from source.
I was going to say, I mean, it's crazy not to be subscribed to the newsletter. You're getting all this valuable data for free, basically, in your inbox. Yeah. So it's a no-brainer in my mind. Nick's here, says, rep the set, Nick. Welcome. Clearly, exet. Christian, even fuller house this week. Yeah, it's a full house this week. Alex, this is my first time catching a live show. Alex, welcome. So great to have you here. Stuart says, good morning from Australia. All glad to be able to join live this week. Stuart, welcome. Yeah, the time difference got worse for those of us who don't change our clocks. So now I have to do this at 11:30 p.m. at night, not 10:30 p.m. at night.
Is this the last time we're doing that? Isn't
No.
it? Oh,
We'll
daylight
always
saving. I
do
thought it
that.
was changing next year. We were kind of done with it, man. I guess.
I would hope
excuse
so,
me, Jake.
but I don't think so.
I thought we voted on it, man. Sad. I'll enjoy the sleep, I guess.
Matt says, "Don't worry, I'm here, Matt. Great to have you." Christian says, "Another great week to not be working for FTX." I opened the show at Dubai Esports Festival by saying, "Well, at least we're all glad we're not working in crypto today, right?" So maybe it was too soon. I don't know, but this is true. It's probably not the best time to be working at FTX. And Alex says it's always changing next year. Yeah, that's true. I feel like there was a bill in 2020 or something about daylight savings getting rid of it.
I thought federally we decided to throw the kibosh, and I was like, is this the last one, or is it like one more year? I can never.
It passed the House and not the Senate. But I have to admit, I'm a big daylight savings gal. I think I'm like the only person who likes it.
But you would, meaning you want to keep it permanent.
Yes,
Like
I
not
like
change the
daylight
clock
savings.
back.
I like having brighter mornings when I wake up. And no matter what, there's not enough daylight hours in the winter. So if we adjusted an hour, all of you are going to still say, damn, it's dark at 6 p.m. It's not going to make a dang difference.
Well, every day is sunshine here, so I don't know. I don't have this issue.
And thank you for tuning in to our weekly Paul Reminds Us Dubai is Better Than Everywhere segment.
It is. All right, we got a lot of news this week. Will you guys be bothered if I start? I mean, yeah, you have no choice, but will you be bothered if I start this week with some patting myself on the back here? Oh, I won't say it's a change of the changing of the tides, but I feel like something is happening. And let me make the case here. There's 3 stories I want to put back to back to back, and hopefully we get Jeff in here right on time to be able to comment on this. Well, I think that's looking better, Jeff. But let me just put 3 stories back to back to back here, okay? And hopefully I make a strong case, and if not, tell me I'm wrong. But the first story here that I want to kick off with is about Embracer. Embracer has been buying up a lot of studios recently, but this article stood out because they're actually shutting one down. And the article here says Embracer shuts down Square Enix Montreal 2 months after buying it. Apparently, and this is the key here, it says apparently it's part of a pivot away from mobile games. So what they're saying is, they got this studio as part of a $300 million deal for Square Enix. It was one of the studios in there. This studio is responsible for their Go series of games. So like Hitman Go, and I guess a few others. But they're shutting the studio down. Keep this in your head for a second. The second article I wanted to bring up was this one, where Capcom released spoke out about what their revenue was looking like for Q2, basically. And they confirmed that half of their video game sales for Q2 were on PC, and that they were seeing a lot of success on PC. So they sold 9.6 million games during Q2, with most of those sales being made overseas and from catalog title sales. The proportional sales shares revealed that Capcom sold 4.8 million games on PC during the period. So 50% of their unit sales for the July to September period. This is the sales from Capcom. Again, PC sales up, Embracer shutting down a mobile studio. Let me round out my argument here. With one more. And this is Take-Two in the news. And Take-Two reporting earnings. And the headline here, Take-Two stock dives on Q3 earnings miss, weak video game sales outlook. Now, what's interesting is the article says that Take-Two shares slumped on Tuesday after the GTA and NBA 2K video game maker posted weaker than expected second quarter earnings and issued a downbeat holiday season forecast. What it's saying, if you dive further into the article, is that their weakness in the group's mobile sector, as well as the ongoing hit from a stronger US dollar, will keep full year bookings between 5.4 billion and 5.5 billion, down from their forecast of between 5.8 and 5.9. So I don't know if you're catching sort of the trend or the argument I'm trying to make here, but have we seen a bit of a reversal that there's a lot of weakness in mobile, that Embracer is shedding a mobile studio, that Capcom is seeing 50% of their sales on PC? Like, have we avoided a mobile gaming apocalypse and everyone's starting to see the error of their ways? Like, I'm curious what you guys make of these three stories. Sorry, that's a very long-winded introduction. Jeff, jump in here.
There's a lot here. I mean, I think, to get to the to come out to the point first, we definitely are seeing issues in.
I think we lost Jeff. Lindsay.
Oh, I just was so excited to hear his point.
I know.
It sounded so important and exciting. I actually really did want to hear his perspective too, as the former Wall Street analyst. I will say I'm in some ways surprised and in some ways not surprised. I think that some mobile developers are not in. I think that there's a mistake when mobile developers try to develop PC or console games on mobile hardware. I think it's really more targeted at a hyper casual gamer with like less of an attention span and less of kind of I don't know if it's necessarily a competitive edge, and that may be my own personal bias weighing in, but I think the vast majority, I mean, Candy Crush has been killing it forever, and that's a very kind of not highly competitive, not highly complex game with like not a ton of world building. I think that I'm not surprised that some of the more complicated mobile game studios aren't having as much success as some of the more basic game studios, in a way, if that makes sense. But I also wonder too how much of the shutting down the Montreal studio had to do with some of the local regulations there, which weren't very friendly towards developing companies. We went through that on the show a little bit, and I think all sort of predicted that they would eventually close. So that part's not surprising. But yeah, definitely a lot to unpack here. That's my initial kind of knee-jerk theory for some of it, but curious to see what you all think.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting, and to be honest, the mobile side for me, I'm just a little more naive to. But it just, as far as like news and viewership, we see the same games getting the same viewership in the mobile space, and it's still coming out of the same region, which is not out of North America. So I think, but aside from those same kind of leaders, I don't know if we've seen a lot of innovation or new platforms, or like not even platforms in the sense of like where to play, but as far as like new titles and genres that have really been groundbreaking. And then another part of that, just to speak to the 2K side, that launch was pretty low, and actually comparing it to like a FIFA, just on the hours watch side. Obviously we don't have the purchase data, but we saw FIFA in 3 days. We just had them for like 3 days of the last part of Q3 where we monitored their launch that we included in the report. And they really, really grew a lot of viewership comparatively to 2K. So I always wonder too, I know Capcom has a bigger year next year for their new Street Fighter game. Hopefully there's more to come from those guys, but yeah, that may be part of those contributing reasons as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, I sort of have called this, right? I'm pretty sure even on the Take-Two one directly, I said they're focused, because we had this whole story where they were going to focus more on mobile. And I said, this is not who they are. This makes no sense, right? They're the big storytellers. It's the Red Dead's kind of the world, the type of game. It's the GTAs, right? It's like this very deep storytelling. And it didn't make sense to me that they would be going in this direction. And I feel like maybe we've come, and I don't know if it's 180 degrees or 360 degrees, but where essentially now taking your eye off the ball and doing mobile seems to be hurting these businesses. I don't know if it's too early to conclude that, or the other thing that could be happening is mobile is playing its part as a gateway drug, and we're seeing people just move up the chain, right? And getting consoles or PCs or whatever, but having mobile as the gateway drug. And if maybe it's working so well that more and more people are moving off of mobile and onto sort of, call it more expensive, higher end gaming platforms. Jimmy, I'm curious if where you are on that. If you think either of those is the reason.
I don't know what to make of it, honestly, guys. I'm looking at all these stories and I see the thread you're trying to connect here, Paul. And the Capcom story to me is more just good news for them that they found something that works in a new audience, because that's I don't see that as taking away from mobile as much as just finding a win on what was it, PC. The shutting down the Square Enix Montreal story also, I look at that and I just think, well, this is a semi-recent acquisition. This is a problem area that they probably identified during due diligence and said, hey, we're going to monitor it for X many months and see what comes out of it. And if not, it's still a good deal for us. And there's still IP that we can repurpose, or there's bodies that we can reallocate or shift, and shift elsewhere for other energies. So I'm not.
Are you saying I'm seeing patterns where there are none?
No, I'm just
a beautiful mind situation where it's just me in my bedroom with a lot of things on the wall, but
I know you like to be right, and you often are right, and you still may be right here, but I'm not ready to give it to you. I'm not ready to give it to you yet. Is basically where
too early to call.
I love that answer. That's perfect.
Matt says, I just want to get caught up here. Matt says this is a disaster, especially because they just rebranded that studio. Yeah, but it was part of it was a bunch of studios that they got. So, if I'm giving Jimmy credit on his answer there, it's, there's a lot of reasons they could have shut that down. I think it's maybe a big coincidence that it was the mobile studio, the studio focused on their mobile games. That feels too coincidental to me, but Stuart says only 16 tabs, Paul, slow week. Stuart, this is my dedicated streaming PC. You do not want to see my work PC. Jimmy has seen the tab nightmare there.
It's in the thousands, for the record.
It's in the thousands.
To also be fair to Paul, I am also one who never closes tabs. It's just that I don't have as great of a computer.
Matt says Square Enix. I know what you meant, Matt. Christian says, time to accumulate Take-Two shares for the eventual GTA 6 development news. Look, this is not financial advice. We don't give financial advice on this show, right? Like consult your, Jimmy, help me out with the legal disclaimer, right? Consult your financial advisor on this, but
don't listen to us. Legal disclaimer.
But GTA 6 could be I think everyone expects it to be huge. So if there's weakness in the stock now, maybe in general, there's weakness in the markets now. Could be the best time to buy. Epic Pub Quiz says, Admiral Akbar says this is a trap. They want us to think they're not going the Diablo Immortal route. That's actually funny. Epic Pub Quiz, quote of the day so far. That's really good. Maybe it is a trap. Maybe they're lulling us into a sense of comfort and complacency. I don't know. Maybe. Christian says, more so a bigger trend in growth tech, cutting out the fat and getting more lean with margins and employees. It could be that too. I'm curious what you guys think of that, but I haven't seen as much weakness on the gaming side, right? Like we haven't heard Tencent firing a bunch of people. We haven't heard, Microsoft's gaming division firing a bunch of people. Meta's maybe the only exception, but they're not just doing gaming. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that or want to chime in on that.
I think, at least from the streaming side, we're coming out of a cycle that was 2 years where anything you threw out was going to be tremendously successful. So I think there's a natural paring back of, is this influencer strategy correct? Is this esports league working as well as we thought it was going to? And I think the same kind of applies for the games, where I don't think we'll reach a point just with as successful and connected as all these pieces are, that we'll see these big layoffs like we're seeing at the tech companies. But yeah, I do think there's a heightening of focus to make sure they're zooming in on what's actually working versus just trying everything to catch whatever wave one publisher might have success with versus their own.
Guys, I want to switch topics here because if you remember, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a crazy discussion, like with so much engagement, so many people really had strong feelings about Overwatch 2. And when I saw this news story, and Jake, it's perfect having you here to help chime in on this, but when I saw this news story, I had to double check the date of the story because I actually thought it was an original Overwatch 1 story that they literally just changed the number or added the number. But the headline here was Overwatch 2 attracted over 35 million players in its first month. And I didn't have a chance to actually go back and look for the original story that this reminded me of, but I could have swore these are the exact numbers that Overwatch 1 put up. It was like they hit that 30 million mark. I don't think it was in the first month, but I believe they did hit that 30 million mark. But this article goes on to talk about that, Activision Blizzard revealed that after its launch, 35 million players, it says, have tried the game. Now, they are also saying the average daily player numbers in the first month were more than double that of Overwatch 1. Again, there's sort of looseness in the language here. It's specific to the first month. And more than double, and I don't know how they count average daily player numbers. Like if you log in and play one game, I don't know how they count this, but it says many of the players, it said, were new and trying Overwatch for the first time, drawn in by the free-to-play model. So 35 million in the first month. When I saw this headline, I didn't sort of buy the rest of the story. I had this feeling like this is all Overwatch 1 players that have just come back and are playing Overwatch 2. But I'm curious what you guys think of it. Do you buy the 35 million number? Do you think, it has sustained past the first month here? Jake, maybe start with you. I don't know if you have any data.
Yeah, I'm looking at some right now. And I think what's really interesting, I believe the number because they're sitting fifth in top games watched. They are, and that's above Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. So last week, they think they edged them out. They had 29 million hours watched last week, and Call of Duty had 24. And this, I think, that should have been when both were fully live for that week. So I think that's really surprising to see. We're starting to see a little bit of a dip in like overall channels broadcasting. You're not seeing those crazy peaks that were there the last couple weeks when we had those big like activation days. But yeah, there seems to be a lot of sticking power, and this is going to be more casual viewership than anything else, which I think is really exciting, especially for Blizzard to be able to see that much traction without Overwatch 2 being kind of the focus of OWL.
But do you guys buy that it's new players that are being brought in here? Because that to me is the crux of this whole thing, right? Like if it's the same 30 million people who are playing Overwatch 1, can we really call it a success? I don't know. Lindsay, you were shaking your head.
I don't really buy that it's new players. And that's, to be fair, that's based on absolutely no data other than things I've seen on the internet and from friends. So I don't want to be out here claiming that I know that for sure, because it very well could be. But just from the reception it's gotten, what I've seen, all of that, I haven't seen a lot of people being like, oh, this is my first time playing Overwatch. This just has not been a thing.
I wonder if they really activated, because I was part of this wave, but when Overwatch 1 came out, I think there was a good casual group that was going in and starting to play as things got more difficult and rankings got more significant. And I pulled away from the game, and now I'm finding myself going back into it. So maybe there's a casual audience that they caught at the beginning of Overwatch 1 that's partially being reactivated as well. But yeah, I think, hard to say on the net new numbers.
I still think it's a win though, Paul. I don't know if it's fair to compare it to Overwatch 1 or Valorant or other games. It's a massive number. They're attracting people. Doesn't matter who those people are. They put out a product that 35 million people have tried, and we'll see the following subsequent months numbers to see what they retain. But it was like when we looked at the Netflix numbers, and I think it was closer to 7 million. We said, well, is this a success or not? And then we saw Netflix putting out a ton more games, so clearly it was enough to keep them going and to double down on that bet, right? Same concept here. I think it's a win.
But Jimmy, don't you think we need to get to a place as an industry where if you're a free-to-play game, trying the game doesn't count for anything in my mind, right? Like it's not a measure of success anymore. If the game is free to play, trying it doesn't count for anything.
It's definitely all about retention. I mean, I would rather see fewer people play during the launch and say a 50 to 75% retention rate than so many people play and have a 10% retention rate.
I agree that retention's more important, but you still need a wide top of funnel to see what comes out the other end. And 35 is a great start, I think. What's going to be more publicly embarrassing or the opposite, right? Like more proof that they're doing well is what that retention rate ends up being. Not necessarily the final number, but I think a higher percentage rather.
I mean, I'm pushing too far here, but even retention rate, I would argue, maybe is not worth that much in a free-to-play universe, because in free-to-play, it's different, right? If it for a box copy game like Call of Duty, you've paid your money. I don't really care how often you log on. I don't care if you play one game or 10,000 games. You've already paid your money, right? With a free-to-play game, it feels to me like the only success metric we should be talking about going forward is what is the average spend per player, or like what is total spend, or right? Like, are people actually playing enough that they see reason to buy in-game items? And then I could make the argument that maybe the top of the funnel doesn't need to be that big, right? Like if you have 1 million players and you have 10,000 whales who are all spending huge dollars, like the game could be quantifiably a success without sort of a big number, big necessarily like huge player base attached to it. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation for sure. Let me get caught up here. Christian says, this explains why no one on my competitive team knows how to play the game. I mean, that is one anecdote, I guess. It's all a bunch of new players. I, by the way, did for the first time, and only because I got a new graphics card, for the first time, did actually play a game on the weekend. And I played a little bit of Overwatch 2, just to get, just to see if it was any different than the beta. And I found, at least in the quick play, which is supposed to have SBMM, the quality of the players was not high. It was very, very low. In fact, it felt like, I don't know if maybe that's another anecdote that there are new players in the game.
Maybe just the quality of you is too high, Paul.
I mean, we know that for a fact, but Matt says, in the context of the Overwatch series, 35 million players is a huge success. However, while it's hard to compare, I don't think it was successful as it could have been when you compare it to Modern Warfare 2, made $1 billion in 10 days. Yeah, financially, I agree. Interesting, though, to Jake's point, that not as many people are watching it, right? So if you're Call of Duty League, that should be worrisome, you would think, right?
Yeah, it's two brothers fighting essentially, because they're both in the same house. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, but again, it's back to that play model. I think a lot of where Call of Duty's viewership will also increase is when this new Warzone map comes out. I think there's only so much Call of Duty viewers will stomach as far as just playing pub matches and grinding gun camos, but so I could see those spots switching pretty quickly, but it'll be probably the same until we see that flip happen.
Jake, you know what I'd love for Overwatch, especially the data, is if you took out, because Overwatch, the interesting part, has got the attention of some very big streamers, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you have like the XQCs and Trainwrecks.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think of others that I've watched play over the last week or two. But I'm curious how much of the success of Overwatch 2 from a streaming audience perspective is chalked up to just the sort of this very small group of huge streamers at the very top.
Yeah, it seems, to be honest, pretty consistent throughout. Like, I'm seeing about 24 channels that had over 100 100,000 hours watched of Overwatch specifically. So I think that's pretty good to see. And then the drop to 50 would be another 25 or so channels too. So I think, again, it's going to always be the top 100, top 50 that are going to generate that crazy bulk. But yeah, I think I'm seeing a lot of creators here that did get in the top 50. Yeah, the 50th most channel was 40,000 of Overwatch hours watched that week. So pretty consistent. But yeah, obviously it's going to vary between the 2 million hours that XQC gets, but he's kind of the standalone. There wasn't another influencer that the next closest influencer got 697,000 hours. So yeah, he's an outlier definitely.
And this is teasing some of the data in your streaming trends report, which we'll get to in a few minutes here. But there were some interesting things in there around XQC and luminosity and how
the ratio of what's really driving your viewership.
I want to get to another Blizzard story though, because connected to Overwatch here. Let me just read Super's comment. Super says, and by the way, hey Super, this conversation reminds me of the launch of Multiversus. Huge numbers, weeks 1 to 3, drastic decline after. Same with viewership, spending, etc. Do you guys think there's a good analogy here? Multiversus and Overwatch 2? Multiversus doesn't have necessarily the brand recognition, right? But it did have a similar hype spike. Jimmy, any thoughts?
I mean, it's similar, but like Super says, we got to take a look at what happens, I think, next month, right? And here's Super's next comment. Feel like it's the future of free-to-play games unless they are the next Fortnite, Warzone, etc. That was back to my original statement, though, guys. Like, if you're going to be the next Fortnite, Warzone, I think a massive splash like this in the first month, 35 million, is a good start. Keeping those numbers equally important. And then Paul's kind of end of the thought process there is, and then how much are they paying to now be there? And but all of these things are necessary, I think, in building out that free-to-play model, right? You need a wide type of funnel, you need high retention, and then you need conversion at the end of it. So I feel like we're all, part of the same. I think we're all in agreement, at least just with different emphasis on which part of that is the most important, but they're all part of the same requirement, I think, on what is a successful game.
Super says Overwatch is 100% more established than a bigger franchise. Just an analogy to free-to-play launches. Yeah, and there may be, I think that is part of the nature of free-to-play launches because the cost to try it is zero, right? You're going to get always the similar curve. Now, the amplitude of the curve may be different, but you're going to get a similar curve. I just want to bring up the second sort of Blizzard story, which I think is a potential major headwind that I didn't see many people talking about, and very relevant to, by the way, our podcast episode this week, which everyone should tune into because it was an amazing episode talking about with the CEO and founder of East Goes Global. It's a tongue twister. East Goes Global, where they help influencers, esports teams, companies, etc., access China basically, or bring them to China. So Andrew Spalter, who's the CEO there and the founder there, had a great conversation about, like they brought Ninja to China basically, right? And set up all their social platforms and everything there. But we talked about headwinds on that podcast. And then I saw this article where the headline is Blizzard licensing deal in China soon expiring. So a mutually satisfactory deal may not be reached, according to the journalist here, according to the author here. But basically, Blizzard could be losing its licensing deal in China. Now, the only game this doesn't affect, interestingly enough, is Diablo Immortal, because it was co-developed in China, basically. So it has a different agreement. But basically, they could lose, for example, the ability to broadcast, play, do all these things, sell Call of Duty in China, basically. So I'm curious what you guys think the impact of this may be. Is no one talking about it because we don't care? Because no one believes the numbers out of China anyways? Like, what's the thinking here in terms of Blizzard maybe losing their licensing in China?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is just yet another strike against China and the regulatory environment there being so bad that I don't know that Blizzard would be wise to continue having a license there or funding that. So I still think that it's very sad what's happening in the Chinese market, particularly for the gamers who want to play games. But I don't think that this is a bad business decision, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see. I know Overwatch, especially, they have a ton of fandom out of China. So I think, regardless, though, I mean, to your point, Lindsay, the regulatory side of things, they might just be putting him kind of in a handcuff situation. I'm curious too, because I also thought Call of Duty Mobile was also developed in partnership out of China as well, but I may be mistaken there. So I was curious if that also kind of had protections. But yeah, I think regardless, it's sad to see, especially for the players of who wants to be there. But at the end of the day, if they're making it too difficult, walking away could be the best thing.
I think we saw a similar story with Fortnite a couple months ago, right? Leaving China, closing its presence essentially in that region. And I feel like more of this is going to happen, not only because of the regulatory environment that both of you referenced, and kind of the crackdown on gamers' ability and playtime ability in the region, but also in terms of just the local government on what they're going to allow the people to play and access. So I feel like this is already has started, but you're going to see continued crackdown where, unfortunately, there are going to be a lot more games that are Eastern oriented or Western oriented that only those cultures and peoples play, with less crossover, which is unfortunate for the global competitive scale of esports, because that's one of the great things that we've seen esports do, is really transcend, I think, all types of barriers, whether it's geographic or gender or anything else of that nature. But I do think that this is already started, and I think this is going to continue, where a lot of big publishers are going to pull out of China. They're going to have their own. They're going to stay. However, those games are going to stay popular there, and our games are going to stay popular here, and it's just going to be, two different worlds.
Yeah. I think even for Marvel, they're going through that right now with the second Black Panther movie. I don't think it's releasing in China unless they've changed something. So I think it's not just going to be gaming, but I think media as a whole, there's a very large trend happening right now. And yeah, I think that's very accurate.
Kieran brings up a good point here. Says, I think the bigger issue here is that Overwatch League teams out of China won't be able to play. I mean, kind of a downside of the city-based leagues, right? Like if it didn't say, there wasn't a Chinese city connected to the team, maybe they could have sort of skirted around this. But this makes it difficult. It's a good point. Before we move on to our next story, 10 Curls has a question here, which I always welcome, even if it's not connected to the stories we're talking about. 10 Curls says, how much do the gaming supplement companies make? I want to start my own, but don't know if it's worth it. I have thoughts on this, but I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts. By the way, Jimmy, I'm sure you'll look it up. We've done multiple episodes with companies that make either gaming supplements or gaming drinks with the CEOs of those companies. So that's probably a good starting point. Great insight from those episodes. I know Jimmy's going to dig it up, but Lindsay, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
No, I want to hear what you guys have to say, because you've done interviews with so many people now that I think you have a better idea of kind of the breadth of the industry and where there might be weak points or if it's worth it.
Yeah, I think take the gaming piece out of it. In general, selling a physical product always has its own complications, and especially with a supplement, where even in the US, even though in the US you don't need like FDA approval or things like that, usually people will only take supplements if you have some kind of study or some kind of third-party validation done around your product that says it's both safe and effective in some kind of capacity. So I think it's a complex business. It's not the easiest business to start. It's not the lowest cost business to start. But do I think there's a huge opportunity to produce supplements that can enhance gaming performance, and provably so? Because just saying it does is not good enough, in my opinion. Yeah, I think there's a huge market for that, and it's still relatively untapped. There's no like huge player or huge brand that everyone knows about, but it's not an easy business to start. guys feel? I don't know if you have any other thoughts, but that's sort of my quick take on this. And Jimmy linked 10 Curls. Jimmy linked one of the episodes. I would even check out the episode we couple episodes we've done with G Fuel also that I would put sort of in that category.
I'm looking for those also right now, Paul. Those were some of the earlier ones, but I'll get them in the chat for you guys that are here and participating.
But NutriGamer is a good one, so that's a good episode to go check out. 10 Curls. All right, Jake, since you're here, let's talk about your Q3 video game streaming trends report here. So I'll bring it up on screen. Why don't you tell me what? Let's touch on what you think are the big highlights and some of the maybe more surprising.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. So I think slide 3, 5, 6, and 9 will probably be best. So if you scroll down just a bit, so we can start there on 3 with that graph. Up one more. Perfect. So over the last few years, we've obviously seen from 2019 to 2021 an enormous growth path for viewership as a whole. So what was interesting to see this year was Q3 of 2022 was our first start of kind of a little bit of a downturn or leveling off. So this is going to be live streaming across the entire board. So esports, influencers, all of that together. So I don't think it's too alarming necessarily. I think if you also look at the number of channels broadcasting, that's also going to be down. I think those factors are definitely going to be, we've talked a lot about gaming fatigue in the past and people needing new titles to play. But I think honestly, all of those casual streamers that are back out of their houses, back in the office is a huge contributing factor to that. And then the second piece to that is really I think if you look at influencers like a Nick Merckx or Tfue, you're seeing their audiences start to wane because there hasn't been that injection of new content. We have seen a lot of good linear storylines come out, like obviously with Thor, or just keep calling it Thor Ragnarok. It is not God of War Ragnarok, launching today, which I am very excited to start playing. But again, as we talked about, Halo launched a little bit left to be desired, Battlefield a little bit left to be desired. I think Call of Duty could be a really good new wave to start seeing that increase again. But regardless, if you look at the numbers, we're still double from where we were in 2019 when comparing quarters.
Jake, so is it really like a pandemic effect? You think it's really just people not having as much time at home?
Yeah, I really think so. And I think even more so, as I mentioned, the real indicator there is the unique channels broadcasting. So the fact that those channels, and it's probably those bottom 10% where it's the guys that are getting 1 to 15 views per broadcast, but that's going to add up over the life of it. But yeah, I think the pandemic, especially when it comes to broadcast time, is really going to be the main driver.
Yeah, there's this interesting spike right in Q3 of 2020 where you have way more people broadcasting. Yeah, not that many hours, right? All of a sudden, everyone decided they wanted to be a Twitch or YouTube star, I guess.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
The next one would be 2 slides after this. So perfect. So what is really interesting, although we saw a decrease in viewership in Q3, we still are seeing a 40% increase in esports watch hours. So esports as a whole is still growing at a really, really strong clip, which is really exciting. We've seen a little bit of difference in distribution market share. Like if you look at Q3 22, Facebook gained a little bit of ground there in viewership. Or actually they stayed about the same. Afrique has grown a little bit in South Korea. But I think what's interesting to see is the fact that YouTube lost a little bit of market share there. I think obviously they're still going to have a lot of viewership because of OWL, because of CDL. But yeah, I think although streaming is down a little bit as a whole, I think the fact that esports is still up 40% is a really big win for the industry to make sure those numbers are still climbing.
Why? Sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
Oh, just to say this is absolutely huge, right? I mean, that massive jump in esports viewership in a down year because a lot of us have been saying, for a while, as esports teams are pivoting and trying to figure out how to monetize and what's working for their brands, esports, and we had talked about esports being this carrot into the video game industry. The viewership tells the opposite story, right? Esports is what they're here for and what they're watching. I also think this is huge in the YouTube decline, Paul, which I'm sure you agree with me, is kind of showing that their massive spend on talent is clearly not working, which we've been saying for months now. And here, thanks to Stream Hatchet, we have the data to prove it, right? It's actually a 2% loss, which I think anything.
So that's going to be for esports specifically. So the slide up actually has the influencer base. Actually, if you scroll up, I wonder if YouTube might have grown.
Let me take my foot out of my mouth.
They did. Yeah, I was going to say, because I did think that they did grow. So they actually grew market share from 12 to 15 year over year. So good increase there. But as you can see from the graph, they're the only platform that did have an increase. Obviously, with Facebook kind of announcing that YouTube or Facebook gaming is not going to be a standalone thing anymore, I'm not surprised to see the significant loss in viewership there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who can benefit most from Facebook kind of turning that chapter, to see if YouTube or Twitch can have some step up that allows them to level up a bit more.
Yeah, Jimmy, you can take your foot out of your mouth, because what this graph tells me is all of the growth for YouTube and Twitch was at the expense of Facebook, right? It's not because Twitch or YouTube did anything really that special. It's because Facebook, disappeared or imploded, basically, is what I take away from this. The question I have for you, Jake, is why, or for anyone really, for all of you guys, what's the big jump here from 2021 to 2022, right? We were growing at sort of like 15, 7. Why then 40 all of a sudden? What do you attribute that to?
I think one of the main pieces is Valorant's esports being as established as it is this year versus years previous. I think we're still kind of getting out of the starting blocks. I think 2 years ago and maybe even last year a little bit, but we've seen an incredible amount of viewership grow there. And then we've also seen kind of a lot of different events going on. So like, I think the Call of Duty Next, like the showcase event, like it's not just specific CDL. They're doing larger activations around their typical scheduled programming, I think, which is helping just add more viewership. And they're still getting the watch hours instead of, I think previously in years past, doing those in-betweens was always a worry. We're going to see a dip in viewership if they're not here for the main property. And I think they're kind of disproving that.
Cool. It's interesting. And then you said slide 7, although
this one actually is really interesting. So what this is a breakdown of the top 10 most watched esports teams. And that black bar is going to represent the esports hours that the organization receives in watch time. And then the orange is influencers. So the big question is, and Luminosity kind of the glaring example, but who is driving the bulk of your viewership? Is it your esports teams, or is it the creators that are really helping get your word out? And I think with Luminosity, obviously XQC being there, the one outlier of all of Twitch, he is driving 98% of the viewership. But what I thought was fascinating is 8 out of the 10 are all more influencer heavy than esports. And I think that's really telling, and you see a lot of balance somewhere in there. But I think even if your esports isn't getting quite the viewership, I mean, influencers has been a great supplement to that strategy as they try to find new ways to monetize. Don't know if you guys have any thoughts here.
Yeah, I'd love to see this graph like over time and how this mix shifts over time. Because if we see esports hours watched growing, right, does it mean that over time this eventually sort of becomes more even? It's just,
I'll bring that graph for next time. But yes, I just wrote a note. I'll bring the graph over time, because I'd be curious to see how it's affected it overall. I'd imagine like somebody like a TSM had a much higher esports viewership for a good long while before seeing their influencers get as large as they have. But I'll definitely bring back some data on that piece.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right, to try and draw some kind of causality here, right? Where do you have organizations where maybe because of their esports success, the players go on to become influencers, right? And shift to sort of content creators. And then all of a sudden the large black bar becomes a large red bar here. I really like this slide because I think it's fascinating to understand. I always talk about this spectrum with esports teams, right? Hoodie orgs and like the orgs focused on winning, but in some ways this is maybe a better spectrum, right? Orgs focused on content versus orgs focused on esports, because we really see the differences here.
And I think it's interesting too. I think somebody who's missing from this top 10 is 100 Thieves, and they have spent an enormous amount on creator focus, and they are not here. So I'm sure they're at 11 or 12, but as far as the top 10 is concerned, I was surprised not to see them up there.
Is this do we have like South American, Latin American teams in this mix, Jake? Also?
Yes.
Okay.
So this will be global esports and influencer viewership. Yes.
Okay, cool. Interesting. And then you said 7 here, right?
Slide 7. 9 would be the next
9,
one.
Sorry. Oh, wow.
So what was very interesting this year. So when you're looking at this top 10, this is the top 10 channels, influencer channels on in live streaming across Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. We are now seeing that 6 of the top 10 are non-English speaking influencers. So everybody has always talked about, hey, influencers, PC, all of this. And I mean, if you look, most of these are on Twitch with the exception of beaming, but Twitch, always North American platform. If you're looking at this graph, this is a global platform and that is getting a lot of global reach. ARM Play, like Spanish streamers, we have 2 Spanish, 2 Portuguese, a Japanese broadcaster, and a German broadcaster. And so I think the variety, not just in Europe, but also to have Japan well represented. I know numbers have always been a little bit small coming out of that country specifically. From a viewership perspective, they play a lot, but they don't watch a lot. So I think it's really, really cool to see the dynamic change from all North American English speaking broadcasters, maybe 1 or 2 European folks in there, to have 6 out of the top 10. I think, it's a really interesting trend to keep watching.
Jake, the numbers on the side here, this is the change in position on
Correct.
this list?
Yeah, that was what I noticed.
Yeah. Big jump.
Like Kai came out of nowhere, right? On Twitch, basically.
Yeah, that one's really come out of nowhere. And I think if you look at this list too, you're just not seeing the usual suspects you'd expect to. Ninja, Nick Merckx, Tim the Tatman, like all of those guys are not included on this list anymore. And I think it kind of shows that the folks, and kind of speaking to like the XQC model, this guy is going live every day, come hell or high water. And so with those folks that have been able to stay really consistent and keep kind of iterating, whether their audience likes just them playing one game or playing multiple games, I think it's been fascinating to see how many people have jumped up kind of out of nowhere to reach the top 10.
Yeah, what we don't have here is monetization.
Yes.
But what is fascinating to me is the logo next to all of these creators, right? Because if you look, 9 out of 10 are on Twitch here. There's only one, and it's the last guy who's on YouTube, which tells me I'm trying to draw a conclusion here. It's either that YouTube's just a far inferior streaming platform, or that the guys on Twitch have to stream more because they don't have options to monetize recorded content like VOD content. I'm trying to figure out what is the connection here, but it's striking that the top 9 out of 10 are all on Twitch.
Yeah.
Maybe there's just a bigger audience for this kind of content on Twitch also, right?
And I think that could be the case, because I think power influencers on YouTube I think the bucket is just going to be a bit smaller. But if you back to the kind of the overall viewership numbers, when you're seeing that YouTube ultimately still has 13% of the overall market and Twitch is holding about 60 plus, I think there's just more opportunity for growth, although it's harder to attain that growth because people are so focused on so many other options. Because channels broadcasting is like something YouTube does a really good job of, is although they have a smaller market share, their like average viewership by channels broadcast is much, much higher. But Twitch has a 2.5 million going live each week. A lot of those may be in the lower spectrum of it. But I think to the point that you're making and what you can see here is you can still take advantage of those thousands and thousands and millions of eyeballs to be able to climb the ladder really fast on a platform like Twitch. And maybe on YouTube, it's just a little bit harder because you're going up against such strong competition everywhere you look, because they don't have as big of a lower tier in viewership streamer.
Yeah, the other thing that stands out to me is just how big of a lead XQC has here. Right? Like,
Yeah.
he's not 10% bigger. He's not 20% bigger. He's twice the size of the next one. Like, I don't know how long you can maintain that, because if he maintains this over a long period of time, it starts to feel a little bit like a winner take most kind of market, right? Where you just get so big and stay so big that anyone else struggles to sort of reach that scale.
Yeah, but we saw that too with Ninja, because he was the winner take all for a very good long time and catapulted off of Fortnite, and then you kind of saw it reshuffle a little bit. But I think if you look at his and Shroud's numbers, like they are not the number 1 and 2 that they used to be. So it could very well be cyclical, but I think I'm going to pull up his year-to-year stats. But I think what's really interesting is he's already kept it up for so long. So like, I think I don't see him going anywhere. And like you said, I mean, he has so much variety in the audience. I think he probably has the widest depth of some people that are going to watch him as far as like the kind of gamer. Are you casual? Are you hardcore? Doesn't really matter. I think he has a really diverse audience in that sense. So I think I don't see him getting jostled off the top anytime soon, but I think we have seen things in the past that there are some unseatings from that top throne.
I just want to get caught up on comments. Matt says seems to be healthy NA representation on that list, referring to the orgs. Yeah, I did find that fascinating. Christian says kind of interesting how 100 Thieves isn't there. Oh, Jake read my mind. Sorry.
Yeah, thought so too.
And Matt says also iBuy fell out of the top 10. Yeah,
yep.
that was definitely noticeable. Like, I'm actually surprised because I don't know, other than XQC, Kai, and Tarek, I don't know anyone else on this list. I don't know if I should admit that, but other than those 3 guys, I have never watched any of the others. Those 3 I watch, but none of the others.
We're a Spanish-based company, so I would feel bad if I didn't know all of these Spanish-based streamers on here. So I have seen those guys quite a bit. Eliason, he's grown. He's a channel that I look at all the time because he's seen a lot of growth over the last few years. But yeah, a lot of these are new names. Cali Canat, hadn't really heard of them prior to this. Yeah, BeamNG, hadn't heard of them prior to this either. But yeah, definitely surprising to see these. Yeah, just the ability in a quarter to jump 149 positions, and against those, like, and everybody knows 130 out of the 149 that you're passing. You know,
yeah,
wild to see.
Christian says I got to check out this XQC guy. Seems pretty popular. Yeah, he could use a couple more viewers.
Christian. Yeah, I'd say so.
Christian also says Gauls is the Brazilian streamer. Yeah, I've like I said, I feel bad to admit I've never watched them. Jake, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover in here. It's an incredibly good report, very fascinating.
Yeah, I think those are the main points I wanted to hit. I think, yeah, there's a lot of other stuff in as far as like top female streamers in gaming. We have VTubers as well, so there's a lot wide diversity game launches. But yeah, I think those are the real sticking points that I thought had some good meat on the bone to talk through.
And if any of our listeners want to get this report, they can
website.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have, if you just go to streamhatchet.com and go to the insights page, you'll be able to find the Q3 report really simply. We also have some LinkedIn posts about it as well. So if you find Stream Hatchet on LinkedIn, I'm sure it'll be pretty easy to find. Click, and then you'll be able to have a digital download for yourself.
Or you can just bug Jimmy directly and he can send it to you. So reach out to Jimmy. Because Jimmy doesn't get enough emails or messages on LinkedIn. No, but seriously, you can. So if any of our listeners, even if not the folks who are here live, but if you're listening to this after the fact and you want to take a look at the graphs and things, it's a fascinating report. And Jake, we love having you on as always.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was fun.
Yeah, no, this was great. I really appreciate you guys letting us come on again, and yeah, excited for more of these in the future.
Really appreciate it. Guys, I have just a couple quick stories here that I had to cover. You know, I feel so bad. I had a story just for Jeff, and I feel bad doing it without him. But this was recommended in our Discord, so like I couldn't avoid it. I really couldn't. And it's a story about gaming chairs, as we are the foremost gaming chair reviewers on the planet. But the headline here is McDonald's is giving away a gaming chair packed with fast food features. Are you loving it? So great to see McDonald's, doubling down on their gaming activations. Let me just give you a rundown of the chair. It's called the McCrispy Ultimate Gaming Chair. Lindsay, I can see your face.
No, I'm so excited because my husband ran up to me when he found this on Twitter and said, "You guys need to talk about this." So the brand is alive and well.
Shout out KevBot Cooks.
KevBot Cooks.
It says it has a slew of features ready for your McNoms. I want to know if McDonald's gave them that copy or if the author went out of their way to come up with this. But it says such as a fry holder, 2 dip holders, a drink holder, a hot box for your food, stain-proof leather treatment, and modular armrests allowing consumers to switch their food from side to side. Jimmy, great gaming chair or greatest gaming chair ever?
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say this might be the best chair of all time. What else do you need? I know, Paul, that we've discussed.
I need to figure out how to get you the McCrispy for your housewarming gift. Is that it?
We've discussed that Logitech Herman Miller chair that I love so much and is probably 8 times the cost, but does it have this functionality? Where am I going to put my dipping sauces? I also shared this as soon as I saw it. I think it's so cool. I'm so tired of just reskinning old tired chairs with different colors. This is actually something that has really fun changes to it that the fry holder, heck yes, I'm going to use that all the time, right? This is wonderful. I hope they do a lot more of this. I want a McDonald's gaming PC like the KFC one that we saw. I want 20 more activations this time next year or they're fired.
Lindsay, any thoughts on this?
I'm excited for the Taco Bell one to inevitably come out because that's more my lane. But I will say, I love these kinds of activations. I think they're super fun. I don't think McDonald's is gonna sell 50 million of these or whatever. But
we're only giving one away, to be clear, and it's only in Great Britain. So.
Boo! They don't even appreciate it there. This is the home of McDonald's.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh no, I'm reading the comments here. Matt says the Taco Bell one will have a toilet built into the bottom of it. No,
Matt's just
Taco Bell. That's not true. We would love for you to sponsor the show and send us a Taco Bell gaming chair.
Wrong. The key is to never stop eating Taco Bell, and then your stomach never has a problem with it. You develop that trait early on when you're young. Good parents do this for their kids. I'm telling you. Jimmy, take notes. Anyways, no, I think that these kinds of activations are super fun, and I think down the road it helps so much when they do inevitably do that partnership with the streamer to do their favorite meal or do the giveaway for the Xbox or whatever. I think these kinds of things show so much levity and fun and also some dedication to the space itself that I think in the end winds up paying dividends when they then do other activations.
Yeah, Lindsay, you said it so eloquently. Like, it's not too try hard. It's not cringy. It's not like overly authentic. It's just kind of fun and lighthearted. And they don't take themselves too seriously, but they still get sort of gaming. I really like it too. Like, for all those reasons, I think it's so clever. Jimmy, I don't know if you had any final thoughts, but I want to get caught up on comments here. So,
no, go for it.
By the way, I missed a couple before. Ken Kroll says, thank you, Paul. Ken Kroll's not a problem. But you can always reach out, by the way, for questions like that, like about starting businesses or things like that. Reach out to any of us or to me on LinkedIn, whatever. I may not get to it right away, but I always get to those messages eventually. W Music says, great podcast as always. Brad, thank you so much. We've almost reached the end, but I still have one more great story you don't want to miss. Matt says, this is the dumbest good idea I've ever heard. I remember reading it is grease resistant. That's the smartest feature. I don't know how much McDonald's you guys are spilling, but like relatively easy to keep it contained. Christian says, I heard you can put an add-on that attaches a broken McFlurry machine on the back for some sturdy support.
Get out of here.
All right. Okay.
Paul,
Everyone's
you've seen how much McDonald's I can eat. So you guys, like literally my first night in Dubai with Paul, and I think we got like 6 bags just for
because you
3 of
arrived
us.
at like midnight, 1 a.m.
And the menu is very different over there. So I wanted to try all of these different things.
You have to try the international ones.
McArabia. It's the best thing
McArabia,
McDonald's
it was
makes.
so good.
Oh, I don't know. I had jalapeno cheddar poppers in South Africa, and they were.
Oh, nice.
Hold on, let me see. Oh yeah, Matt says it should come. Okay, you guys are like what? It's like all comedians now. Matt says it should come with a built-in air fryer so you can reheat your fries. I'm sick of getting delivered cold fries. You guys don't know the trick, hey, for not getting delivered cold fries? No one knows this? This is a gaming business podcast, but I'll give you free life advice here. Order your fries with no salt. It means they have to make them fresh because they salt the fries that sit. So if you order it with no salt, they have to make them fresh on the spot.
Tricky.
There you go.
And what, you brought on yourself? Or?
This is what life experience gives
Yes,
you.
Jimmy.
Matt says, I kid. I actually love Taco Bell. There you go. Guys, before we get to our last story, and it's a fun one, it's actually a serious one, but also a fun one. I just want to say this live stream, this weekly news show is very generously sponsored by YouGov. YouGov provides the absolute best data on gamers, gaming fans, esports teams all around the world. It's living data. It's data that's constantly being updated. If you're looking to understand the gaming audience better, you're looking to reach that gaming audience, you want to talk to them more effectively, you want to market to them more effectively, you absolutely need to be talking to YouGov, guys. They are the best in the business. Go check out yougov.com. /BOE, where you can get a bunch of free data. And if you need to be put in touch with anyone at YouGov, you can reach out to any of us, and we're happy to connect you with the fine folks there. So thank you to YouGov for their support. All right, guys, one last story here. I promised I was going to end on a good one. And this is Oculus in the news, which I find fascinating because of how clickbaity this headline was. And the headline said, Oculus founder making a VR headset that literally kills you if you lose your game. So, and the subheadline was, only the threat of serious consequences can make a game feel real. So Palmer Luckey, who was the founder of Oculus, supposedly is working on a headset that will literally kill you if you die in game. And he's quoted, I just want to read the quote. It says, the idea of tying your real life to your virtual avatar has always fascinated me. You instantly raise the stakes to the maximum level and force people to fundamentally rethink how they interact with the virtual world and the players inside it. Pumped up graphics might make a game look more real, but only the threat of serious consequences can make a game feel real to you and every other person in the game. This headset, killer headset, supposedly was inspired by some Japanese anime. I don't know if we should be taking hardware design tips from Japanese anime, but I'm curious what you guys think. Obviously, you know, this is probably not something that will come to market. It's a piece of art, according to him, right? Something thought-provoking. I don't think anyone will ever produce an actual, you know, retail version of this. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Lindsay.
You know what? I am glad to know that there are people out there who have never watched a single sci-fi movie or read a single book or thought about anything about robots and technology and are just out here bopping along thinking that they can make all this with no consequences. Amazing. That this guy has just lived under a rock where he's only served Japanese anime and has no clue what he's doing.
Well, he's made some great headsets, right? The Oculus headset. Jimmy, Matt makes a good point here. Jimmy's the lawyer. This would require serious, right? What do you call like waivers to be signed?
That's why it's art, right? It reminds me of that Nathan For You episode that we watched about the dumb Starbucks, like just calling something art to get around legalities and allow freedom of expression. I've seen this story a number of times on my feed on Twitter, which I'm just so sick of it, honestly, guys. Like,
Okay.
I don't think it's that cool. I think it's something that someone,
Can we?
all the
Okay, let
boxes
me
are
ask
checked,
a
but it's
better
not
question.
interesting to me.
You guys don't like the story. Fine. Let me ask a better question. What if, do you agree with the premise at least that some risk of harm's maybe the wrong word, but like some element of real risk could make the experience more real, right? And may make the games more immersive as a consequence. And maybe it doesn't kill you, but for example, it creates, like, if you get shot or stabbed or something in a game, there's pain or something there that that lasts for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So there's some physical consequence that's not life threatening. Like, in my mind, this is a spectrum. It's not like headsets that don't kill you and headsets that do kill you. Maybe there is some gray in there for a headset that inflicts some small amount of pain so that it makes the game more real.
There's like
You guys never played laser tag as a kid and the thing would vibrate? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's way different. There's like a trillion studies out there that talk about how negative reinforcement is just basically absolute ass and positive reinforcement works way better. So what if instead you got like fed a chocolate bar for a kill? That would be like way more effective at making people
Now you're speaking my language.
That's what I'm saying.
I do that already.
Whoa. I mean, Paul, I see your point, but cool VR rewards mechanisms, I think, would be a lot more fun and exciting than negative reinforcement.
The coolest VR I've seen, I don't know if I shared this with you guys, is they actually have large facilities with grids and entire teams put on VR headsets and have the full get up, right? And they walk around that grid, but wearing VR, and you can watch the map that they're playing on the big screen. And that's really, not only as a spectator, it's fun to watch, but as a gamer, I'm sure is more fun to play in. And then, yeah, Paul, I've seen like the chest plates that you could put on, right, where it kind of thumps your chest when you get shot. I guess I'd have to try it to see if I like it, but I'm lazy. I like sitting in my chair. I want to get another console because even PC gaming sometimes is a little too intense, and I just want to lay on my couch and rub grease all over my not McDonald's stain-proof couch, So maybe it's just the wrong audience on this.
Alex says probably an excellent waiver template in there somewhere. I'm sure if this was actually real, there would be a horde of lawyers all over this. Matt says sounds like play to earn gaming. Matt, you were so close. It's like play to live gaming. Maybe that's what we've just invented here. Play to live gaming. Guys, on that note, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who showed up, who commented. Appreciate all of you who show up live for the show. Jimmy, Lindsay, you guys are amazing. Thank you as always. Thank you to Jake at Stream Hatchet, who brought such amazing insight as always, and a great report, which I highly recommend everyone go download or reach out to Jimmy for. And guys, don't forget the most important thing of all: the future is fun. We'll see you next week.